Chapter 46-63. As the emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom was pushed back, he only saw a red figure rushing forward. In the blink of an eye, the figure entered the sand wall. Seeing that it was Fengjiu, the emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom did not enter. Instead, he took a step back to watch and wait. At this moment, the masked man also arrived. However, he did not enter. Instead, he stood beside the emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom and quietly watched the scene in front of him with a thoughtful look in his eyes. In the middle of the training field, within the sand wall, Leng Hua was destroying the human-shaped sand. However, these human-shaped sand were not alive. After being hit, they scattered on the ground and became a pile of loose sand. However, in the next moment, these loose sand gathered together to form a human-shaped figure and attacked them again. This process repeated over and over again. Even though his strength was not weak, he was unable to block the human-shaped sand while protecting the two children at the same time. Seeing that 4 or 5 human-shaped sand were surrounding the two children, Leng Hua and Hao immediately shouted, "Quickly, get out of the way! Run!" The two of them struck out with their palms, intending to destroy the human-shaped sand. However, they did not expect that after the human-shaped sand surrounded the two children, they actually scattered into a pile of loose sand and fell to the ground. Then, they quickly piled up and buried the two children. Ah! The wind and sand swirled and covered the two children as if it wanted to bury them alive. Yu who had never encountered such a situation, cried out in alarm. She instinctively hugged her head and squatted down. Seeing this, Mu Chern hurriedly used his small body to shield his sister. Just when they thought that they would definitely be buried alive, they heard a familiar and reassuring voice. "Draw a circle on the ground. Break." The moment Fengjiu's voice sounded, the three children fiercely looked in the direction of the voice. Not far away, their mother's red dress fluttered in the wind. Her beautiful face was filled with a cold voice. They saw her forming a strange seal with her hands and pinching a talisman between her fingers. As the seal fell, the talisman was also burned out by the flames that rose from her fingertips. As soon as she said the word "break," the ground that was as calm as the surface of a lake was smashed by a stone, and a powerful aura rippled out. In that instant, the surrounding wind and sand also fell, and the fine sand that had condensed into a human shape also fell to the ground. Faintly, there seemed to be some fragments of talismans among the fine sand. "Mother! Mother! Mother!" The three children cheered happily and quickly ran toward her. The moment they saw her, the three of them forgot the fright just now and only joy and peace. Fengjiu glanced around and saw that the surrounding sandstorm had calmed down. She then looked at the three children and asked, "Mother's death. Are you injured?" "Mother, we are not injured. But mother, where did that come from? Why did the sand turn into a human?" Hao asked. "Talismans." The masked man slowly walked forward and glanced at the people standing in the martial arts field. Then, his gaze fell on Fengjiu, who was practicing martial arts. The masked man looked at Fengjiu and said in a deep voice, "They have already begun to attack you. You don't have much time left." Chapter 46-64. She looked at the talismans scattered on the sand and waved her hand. A flame swept across them and burned all the talisman fragments. "What's going on? Who used the talismans against you?" The emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom asked. He secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the children were fine. "Father, don't worry. It's fine now. I'll send the children back to rest first. I'll look for you in a while," Fengjiu said. The emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom nodded when he heard that. "All right, go ahead." He watched as they walked towards the side hall where they were resting. He sighed softly and shook his head. He then walked back with his hands behind his back. Fengjiu sent the three children back to their rooms and asked them to bathe first. She then turned to Leng Hua and asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Leng Hua said. He then said apologetically, "I just didn't protect the three little masters well. You've already done a good job. Watch over them. Pack up while you're at it. We're leaving tomorrow, Feng Jiu instructed. She then asked Ling Hua to stay as well. When she saw the masked man sitting in the courtyard, she said, I'm going to say goodbye to Father. With a lot on her mind, Feng Jiu went to the main hall. Father Xianyuan was already waiting there. When he saw her enter, he gestured to her and said, Have a seat. Feng Jiu sat down and said, Father, I'm preparing to leave with the children tomorrow. The emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom hesitated when he heard that. He asked, You're leaving? Is it because of what happened today? I was going to leave anyway. I wanted to take the children out to see the world. I didn't expect something like this to happen today. So I'm leaving tomorrow. She was going to leave tomorrow. Now that something like this had happened, she couldn't stay here any longer. She was afraid that she would bring trouble to him and the empire. Then, where are you going? Do you have a target? He asked. Thinking that his 3 grandsons were about to leave, he felt reluctant to part with them. Feng Jiu paused for a moment, then said, We still need to make a trip to the heavens. As for the other matters, it hasn't been decided yet. Half a year's time is almost up. Perhaps I will let the children go with their master in advance. Sigh. I got it, you guys can go now. Take good care of yourselves and take care of yourselves. Nothing is more important than safety. No matter where you go, if you have the chance in the future, just bring the children back to see me. If you can't come back, just remember to send me a message to let me know that you are all safe. He sighed softly, and there was an unconcealable loneliness in his words. Feng Jiu's lips moved, but he didn't know what to say. In the end, he just nodded. I will. She took out some pills from her space and said, Father, keep these pills with you just in case. If you encounter any problems in the future that you can't solve, you can send a message to my brother and ask him to come and help. He didn't refuse and took the pills. He replied, Okay, I got it. Feng Jiu stood up and looked at him deeply. Father, parting is the saddest thing. You don't have to send us off tomorrow morning. Hearing that, he felt bitter. He looked at her and said, Okay, take care of yourselves. Don't worry too much about this place. We are all fine here. Just take care of yourselves. Chapter 46-65. The next morning, Feng Jiu and the rest boarded the spaceship and left. The emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom didn't send them off. Instead, he stood at a high vantage point and watched as their spaceship slowly ascended into the sky and disappeared into the clouds. Only then did the emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom retract his gaze and walk back slowly. At the bow of the spaceship, Feng Jiu set up a soundproof enchantment. He looked at the masked man and said, Didn't you say that they couldn't come down? Then how did they use talismans to create assassins? The masked man leaned on one side. Compared to Feng Jiu, his expression was more relaxed. He glanced at her and then looked at the clouds outside the spaceship. He said, They can't come down, but that doesn't mean they can't do anything. Furthermore, they dealt with Xianyuan Mo's. Naturally, they won't leave you alive. It's only a matter of time before they make a move. Furthermore, since they've already made a move, it's impossible for them to stop. He paused and then said casually, It seems like the rest of the journey won't be too boring. Hearing this, Feng Jiu's eyes flashed. He said, Then shouldn't you tell me about what happened up there? What should I tell you? Tell you that you're still an ant to the people up there who can kill you any time with your current strength? Or that the people up there want to kill you, and you'll have a slim chance of survival in the coming days? He glanced at Feng Jiu and swirled the wine glass in his hand. He smiled faintly and said, I heard that you're destined to break through the 8 extremes of the heavenly Tao and become the master of the world? Perhaps this is a prophecy made by some of the people down there who are knowledgeable about the past and present. However, in the eyes of the people up there, those who are destined to have such a destiny are people who will be plagued with misfortune. They will have to go through all kinds of dangers and may even die at any time. Even if you're lucky enough to grow up, They will have many opportunities to kill you before you can stand shoulder to shoulder with them. Feng Zhou pursed his lips and frowned. He said calmly, I don't want to know that. I just want to know how I can find my enemies. Also, is it only by ascending that I can see those powerful beings that you speak of? What kind of place is the 9 heavens, immortal realm you mentioned? Hearing this, he smiled and shook his head. I can't say that because it's very likely that you won't be able to ascend in this lifetime. You have to know that in order for you to ascend, you have to go through 81 heavenly thunders to become an immortal. Since the Almighty above is trying to kill you, how could they let you go through 81 heavenly thunders? He smiled and said, Let's talk about these things when you have the chance to ascend and become an immortal. As soon as he finished speaking, he downed the wine in his cup in one gulp and then collapsed onto the deck of the boat. He held his head with one hand and closed his eyes as he rested on his side. Obviously, he didn't want to talk to Feng Zhou anymore. Feng Zhou glanced at him and pursed his lips. He didn't say anything else and just waved his hand to remove the soundproof barrier. He stood up and walked around. She came to the front of the ship's bow and watched the ship glide through the clouds. She watched as the wind and clouds brushed past the ship's hull. She looked at the endless horizon in front of her and could not help but turn back to look at the 3 children. She made up her mind. Chapter 46-66. 2 days later, the airship was slowly flying in the sky. The people on the ship were either cultivating or resting. Everything looked so peaceful. However, in this seemingly peaceful sky, the weather suddenly darkened. At first, the wind whistled, causing the ship to sway a little. Then, a drizzle fell from the sky like needles. Why is it suddenly raining? Du Fan opened his eyes and looked at the sudden change in the sky. Seeing the drizzle fall like needles, he couldn't help but stand up in surprise. There was a barrier formed by spiritual power around the ship. Regardless of whether it was wind or rain, it couldn't blow in. Therefore, he stood at the bow of the ship and looked at the sudden change in the sky, observing for any abnormalities. What's wrong? Is something wrong? Ling Hua walked over and asked. He also looked at the sky that was raining. Seeing that the sky was dark, he asked, Should we find a place to stop first? Didn't Master enter the space to refine pills? He probably won't be able to come out now. Du Fan said, still looking at the sky. He felt that the atmosphere in the sky was somewhat oppressive. Master entered the space and can't come out. Then, we'll control the airship to land. It's good to stop below. You see, the wind is getting stronger and stronger, and it's raining. The airship will be unstable during flight. Ling Hua said, thinking that it was necessary to find a place to stop below. Hearing this, Du Fan nodded. That's good. Let me see what's below. As he spoke, he came to the side of the ship and looked down at the clouds. He also released his divine sense and looked down. Du Fan, quick, let's move the airship and stop below. Ling Hua's voice changed slightly with a trace of surprise. Du Fan, who was looking down with his divine sense, quickly turned back. What's wrong? Du Fan turned back and saw that his expression had changed slightly. Following his gaze, he saw that about 10 meters in front of their airship, there was a whirlpool in the sky. The whirlpool was extremely large, and it was pitch black inside. It made whistling sounds in the wind and rain. It was as if there was a suction force, sucking their airship into the whirlpool. The airship, which was flying slowly, moved forward much faster. Not good. Hurry and call Master. Du Fan exclaimed and asked Ling Hua to call their master. He immediately used his spiritual power to control the airship to turn around and descend. However, they had somewhat underestimated the power of the whirlpool. Even though the spaceship had turned around under Du Fan's control and was descending, the whirlpool's suction was still extremely terrifying. It was as if there was a pair of hands inside the whirlpool that was pulling them in. The spaceship was uncontrollably pulled toward the whirlpool. Moreover, because it was being forcefully sucked in, the airship tilted slightly. This movement was felt by the 3 children who were cultivating in the side room. They quickly ran out to see what was going on. Hurry and go in. Don't come out. Leng Hua pushed them in, afraid that they would encounter an accident when they came out. Therefore, the 3 children were pushed back into the cabin by Leng Hua as soon as they took a step out. Moreover, because of the tilting of the airship, they could not stand steadily and fell around. Master! Master! Chapter 46-67. Fengjiu was refining pills in her space. Just as she was about to open the furnace, she heard Leng Hua's anxious calls and knocks on the door. She hurriedly came out. However, the moment she opened the door, she saw darkness and a little dizzy. She couldn't even stand steadily and swayed with the violent shaking of the ship. At that moment, she felt a powerful force pulling the spaceship forcefully, and the spaceship lost its balance and was sucked in. After a moment of dizziness, she felt the barrier of the spaceship break with a bang, and the spaceship fell down from a high place. Oh no! Du Fan, Leng Hua, quickly stabilize the ship with me. Leng Hua, take care of the 3 children. Don't let them out. Feng Jiu immediately shouted. Seeing that the situation was not good, she immediately flew out of the spaceship and came to the bottom of the spaceship to quickly stabilize it. The moment she shouted, Du Fan and Ling Shuang quickly took action. They each held onto the 3 corners of the spaceship. However, even though they had used their spiritual energy to protect the spaceship, they could not withstand the powerful force of the spaceship. As a result, when the spaceship was pressed down, they could only slow down the force of the falling spaceship and minimize the damage to the minimum. Bang, bang, bang! The ship landed on the ground but did not stop immediately. Instead, it slid on the ground for about 10 meters and knocked down many trees before coming to a stop due to the friction between the sand and stones. Fengjiu, Du Fan, and Ling Hua came out from the side of the ship. Seeing that the ship had stabilized, they finally heaved a sigh of relief. Thinking of the 3 children on the ship, Fengjiu immediately jumped onto the ship. How are the children? Fengjiu quickly stepped forward and asked. Only then did Ling Hua open the door of the room where the children were. He saw Hao hugging Mu Chun and Mu Yu. The 3 of them hugged each other tightly as they sat on the ground. Their faces were pale and panicked. After seeing them, they seemed to heave a sigh of relief and quickly stood up. Mother! The 3 children threw themselves at Fengjiu, clearly frightened. I'm fine, I'm fine. Are you hurt? Fengjiu asked, looking at the 3 children one by one to see if they were injured by the violent shaking of the ship. No, we fell on the deck and didn't stand up, so we weren't injured. Hao said. Yes, no injuries. Mu Chun and Mu Yu nodded and said, That's good. Fengjiu breathed a sigh of relief and touched their little faces. At this time, as if he thought of something, he led them out of the cabin and came to the outside. Looking at this unfamiliar place, he could not help but frown. Previously, he had only been focused on stabilizing the spacecraft that was being flung downwards, so he didn't have time to look around carefully. Now that he looked around, he realized that this place was full of strangeness and oppression. Moreover, it was noon when they were there, but here it was pitch black. The surroundings were quiet and no other sounds could be heard. There was no spiritual aura in the air either. It was as if they were in a place that was isolated from spiritual aura. Master, a whirlpool suddenly appeared in the sky earlier. We quickly turned the ship around, but we were sucked in too late, Du Fan said. At this time, he also looked around and felt that this place seemed a little strange. Chapter 46-68. He went into the cabin this morning and told us not to disturb him. He hasn't come out since, Leng Shuang said as he looked at the tightly shut cabin door. Hearing this, Fengjiu frowned slightly, but he didn't check. Instead, he walked to the bow of the ship and looked around. He saw that they seemed to be in a cave in the mountains. Other than some trees and weeds, they were surrounded by high peaks that reached into the clouds. Du Fan and Ling Hua, you 2 go and check the surroundings. See if there are any people nearby and where we are now, Feng Zhou instructed the two of them. Yes, the two of them responded. They gathered their qi and flew off on their swords. Feng Zhou looked at the sky and immediately gathered spiritual energy in her hands to set up a boundary to protect the ship. However, just as she was setting up the boundary, her heart skipped a beat. She looked at her hands and her eyes flashed. Don't run around. Don't get off the ship. Feng Zhou looked at the three children and instructed them. Okay, we know. The three children responded seriously. Seeing her walk to the closed cabin door and knock, they followed behind her and watched. Knock, knock. Feng Zhou knocked twice. There was no sound from inside. She called out, "If you don't open the door, I'm going in." She waited for a while, but there was no movement inside. Thus, she used her divine thought and pressed her hand on the door. The next moment, she pushed it open. The cabin wasn't small. Other than a bed for resting, there was space for other things. She walked in and scanned the room. Her gaze fell on the figure sitting cross-legged on the bed. There was an aura around the figure. It was obvious that he had set up a boundary to protect his body. At this moment, there was only an extremely weak aura around his body. He sat there with his eyes closed. It was as if he had entered a state of meditation and was not aware of anything in the outside world. Feng Zhou glanced at him and remembered some things he mentioned. She stopped and said to the three children behind her, "You guys go out first." Okay. Although the three children were curious, they listened to her and left. After the three children went out, Feng Zhou stepped forward and observed him for a while. After confirming that his divine soul was not in his body at this time, she frowned. Without breaking the boundary that protected his body, she turned and walked out. She remembered him saying that because this body wasn't his original body, he couldn't stay here for a long time. Moreover, every once in a while, his soul would have to return to his original body. She just didn't expect that she would encounter this today. Thinking of the situation she sensed just now, her heart sank. It seemed that she had to leave this place as soon as possible. On the other side, Du Fan and Ling Hua, who had gone to investigate the surroundings, were flying through the night on their swords. Suddenly, the two of them felt that their flying speed was gradually slowing down, and their bodies seemed to be getting heavier. Something doesn't seem right. Before Ling Hua could finish speaking, his vision turned black and he fainted. Ling Hua! Du Fan shouted. The spiritual aura on his body surged. However, at that moment, a dark green flame appeared in front of him and was extinguished. Almost at that moment, his spiritual aura seemed to be suppressed. His vision darkened and he lost consciousness and fell. Chapter 46-69. On the airship, Feng Zhou frowned. She looked around and didn't see Du Fan and Ling Hua. She had a bad premonition. She summoned her contracted beasts from her space. Fire Phoenix, Cloud Swallow. 3 rays of light came out. After the light disappeared, the Fire Phoenix and 2 Cloud Swallow beasts appeared in front of her. What happened? Fire Phoenix looked around. When she sensed the aura here, her voice changed. It's demonic aura. Demonic aura? Feng Zhou raised her eyebrows. I only felt that the aura here was a little strange. Moreover, I gradually couldn't use my spiritual power. I didn't expect it to be demonic aura. Beasts were very sensitive to demonic aura. Since the Fire Phoenix said so, then it must be true. Du Fan and Ling Hua went out to scout and still haven't returned. I'm worried that something happened to them. You guys stay here and guard. I'll go take a look, Feng Zhou said. Just as she was getting off the airship, she heard a voice. Wait a minute. Hearing this voice, Feng Zhou was slightly surprised. She turned around and saw that the masked man had already come out. Seeing this, she said, "Didn't you have an out-of-body experience before? I thought that you wouldn't be able to come back here." She didn't expect that he would be able to wake up. I also didn't expect that something would happen in such a short time. You were actually brought to this demon realm by them. The masked man sighed and slowly walked out. He looked at Yu and paused for a moment. Then he looked at Feng Zhou. I have to take them away. This place is not suitable for them. Fengjiu was silent for a moment. She looked at the three children. After a while she asked, "You said that this is the demon realm? I found that the aura of spiritual power here is restricted. How are you going to take them away? At present, the blood curse on you and Shen has not been completely removed. The longer you stay in the demon realm, the more difficult it will be for you to use your spiritual energy. Now that we're here, I can still take them away, but it's hard to say if we stay any longer. Also, I received news that they want to trap you here forever. In this place, even with your strength, I'm afraid it will be difficult to open a corner of the sky and return to your original place. I'm not leaving. I don't want to leave Mother. Wherever Mother is, you will be there." Yu shouted loudly and hugged to her mother's side, tightly hugging her leg. "I'm not leaving either. Mother is in danger now. I won't leave. I want to be with my mother," Hao said and stood beside Fengjiu. "I won't leave even if you beat me to death." Mu Chen also came to Fengjiu's side and held her hand tightly. He looked at the masked man warily. "We're not leaving. I will never go with you. Even if this is the demon realm, we still want to be with Mother. We don't want Mother to be in danger." Hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but sigh softly. He touched Yu's head and said, "It's dangerous here. Sooner or later, you will worship him as your master. Leaving with your master is also a good thing." No, I don't want to," Yu said with red eyes. She looked up at her mother pitifully. "Mother, Yu doesn't want to leave Mother. Yu doesn't want to, don't." Chapter 46-70. Hearing this, the masked man who was about to step forward stopped. His deep gaze looked at the little girl who was like a little beast. Seeing that her eyes were slightly red and filled with anger and vigilance, he sighed in his heart and a trace of helplessness flashed through his eyes. Only then did he look at Fengjiu and said, "Aren't you going to look for them? Go. We'll wait for you here." Seeing this, Fengjiu looked at him and patted the three children beside her and said, "You guys wait here obediently. Mother will go look for Du Fan and Ling Hua. Mother, you must come back safely. We'll wait for you here." Yu's young and tender voice carried a unique softness of a child. With a worried look, she pulled her mother's hand and said, "My brothers and I will wait here for Mother to come back. If Mother doesn't come back, we won't go anywhere." Fengjiu's heart warmed and she rubbed her little head and said, "Okay, be good. Mother will be back very soon." She looked at the masked man and said, "I'll have to trouble you." After saying this, she took a deep breath and stepped out of the airship and went in the direction Du Fan and the others had gone. Shuttling back and forth in the night, she felt that the demonic aura in the air was getting heavier and heavier. In the night, other than the sound of the wind, there seemed to be no other sound. However, at this time, she suddenly stopped and looked back. At this time, she could no longer see the location of the spaceship, as if it was covered by a thin fog. She thought of the three children on the spaceship, and then remembered that the Fire Phoenix and the masked man were guarding the spaceship. Thus, she did not stop and went forward. "Ling Hua?" Fengjiu called out in surprise. She saw that the person sitting in the grass in front of her was Ling Hua, who had gone out with Du Fan just a moment ago. However, at this time, he was sitting in a daze and his whole face was lifeless. Seeing this, she quickly went forward. "What's the matter? You guys met?" She pushed his shoulder with her hand, but just as she touched him, her voice stopped, and her whole body quickly retreated. Xiao! Two vines sprang out as if they were alive. If she hadn't retreated at that moment, she would have been tied up. Looking again, Ling Hua, who was sitting in a daze on the grass, suddenly changed into the appearance of a big tree. The trunk of the big tree was about 2 people hugging it. There weren't many branches and leaves, but they were swaying. Ling Hua's face appeared to be struggling inside the tree. What a good demonic tree! Looking at this scene, Feng Jiu's eyes turned cold. She stretched out her hand and the Qingfeng sword, which was glowing with a green light, appeared in her hand. As the spirit force in her palm surged, flames surged. The red figure rose up, raised the sword in her hand high up, and slashed down fiercely at the demon tree below. Suddenly, the humanoid face on the tree let out a shrill shriek. As soon as the shriek rang out, Feng Jiu's hand involuntarily trembled, and the sword in her hand slashed to the side. Chapter 46-71. The sound was like oil coming into contact with fire, producing a sizzling sound. As the flames burned in the air, the demonic aura gradually decreased. Some of the demonic aura and some of the surrounding trees quickly retreated, as if they were afraid of being touched by the flames. Even the demonic tree wanted to take the opportunity to escape. Feng Jiu retracted her aura and hid in the darkness to chase after the demonic tree. She didn't extinguish the flames on this side, and let it continue to burn. She took a deep breath and directly pierced the body of the demonic tree with the Qin Feng sword stand in her hand. When the sharp sword pierced, with a whoosh, green liquid flowed out. At the same time, the demonic tree let out a blood-curdling scream. The body of the tree slowly shrunk until it finally became a human-sized tree stump. "Speak, where is my man?" Feng Jiu shouted. She pulled out the Qin Feng sword and pointed it at the demonic tree. As she increased her strength, the sharp sword tip pierced into the human-shaped tree stump. Slivers of liquid seeped out, accompanied by the pleading of the demonic tree. Don't kill me, I'll bring you there." It hurriedly begged for mercy, afraid that its hundreds of years of cultivation would be destroyed. However, the tree demon led the way in front. As they walked, Feng Jiu glanced at the ground without batting an eyelid. She secretly gathered a wisp of flame in her palm. In the next moment, she suddenly struck out her palm and slapped the ground beside her that seemed to be pitch black with nothing else. Bang! With a bang, the palm wind and flames struck down. Following that, a blood-curdling scream rang out. Some black liquid splashed out from the ground. Feng Jiu waved her hand and swept the splashed liquid to the other side. The demonic tree wanted to take the opportunity to escape. She coldly snorted. With a sweep of the Qin Feng sword in her hand, she cut off the branches on the human-shaped tree stump. The demonic tree was shocked. It instinctively squatted down. Seeing the branches on the ground, it trembled and turned its head back. It said to Feng Jiu, I can't bring you to the front. Otherwise, the demonic king will kill me." "Then you're not afraid that I'll kill you? Or, do you want to have a taste of being burned as firewood?" Feng Jiu glanced at it, playing with a cluster of flames in his hand, and threatened in a cold voice. Looking at the life heavenly flame, the tree demon was scared. He shrank his body and said, "No, I'll take you there. I'll take you there, okay?" Only then did it accept its fate and lead Feng Jiu forward. When they arrived in front of a big tree, it shrank back and said, "Go in there. It's right there." Feng Jiu looked at the place the tree demon was pointing at. It was a huge, lush tree. The trunk of the tree would probably need 7 or 8 people to surround it. The demonic aura around the tree was slightly thicker, but other than that, there was nothing special about it. "How do we get in?" Feng Jiu asked. "Turn left and right around the tree trunk. Then, hit the tree trunk and shout 'Open.' Then, it will open." The dryad whispered as it observed its surroundings. "Underground palace?" Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows. Yes. Your 2 people were caught by the demonic empress herself. They were caught inside. The demonic empress loves to absorb the essence of cultivators. If you don't want to see them reduced to bones, you better go in quickly," the tree demon said as it retreated. It was afraid that Feng Jiu would come to settle the score with it. Feng Jiu glanced at it and followed its instructions. He circled left and right around the tree. Finally, he hit the tree trunk and shouted, "Open!" Chapter 46-72. It was an underground palace. As she walked down the stairs, she could faintly hear sounds coming from inside. On the walls on both sides, clusters of faint green willow, the wisps floated, illuminating the path beneath her feet. The faint green willow, the wisps' glow also added a strange aura to the place. The wisps danced inside, and there was also a flow of aura in the air. Clearly, this underground palace had more than one entrance. Somewhere, it should be connected to the outside world. Unexpectedly, after she entered, she did not see a single demon. As she walked, she realized that this underground palace led to a cave in the mountain. It seemed that on the other side, a large group of demons had gathered. She stood close to the stone wall, slightly tilting her body to look at the place where the wisps floated. She saw that the sound she heard earlier was coming from there. At this moment, there were about 100 demons of different shapes and sizes. In the middle of those demons, who else could it be but Du Fan and Ling Hua? Seeing that the two of them seemed to have fainted and were unconscious, but seeing them being hung upside down by those demons, a trace of anger arose in her heart. Her gaze swept across, and landed on two great demons among those demons. One of them was a demoness with heavy makeup and a seductive face. The demonic aura on her body was extremely strong. Not to mention her seductive appearance, just the demonic aura on her body made it hard for people to ignore her. On the other hand, the face of the one at the side couldn't be seen clearly. It was as though there was a layer of mist covering his face. One could only feel a powerful demonic aura emanating from his body. Needless to say, these two should be the Demon King and Demon Empress that the tree demon mentioned. Just as she was thinking about how to save Du Fan and Ling Hua, she heard a voice coming from inside. "Why did you bring these two people back? They are the subordinates of that ghost Dr. Fengjiu. If you capture her people, she will definitely come looking for you. Won't you be causing trouble then?" The Demon King's voice carried some worry. Looking at the two cultivators who were hung upside down, he said to the Demon Empress beside him, "Let them go. Just pretend that you don't know that they are here." When the Demon Empress heard this, she raised her coquettish eyes and glanced at him. "Put it back? Don't forget that the immortals up there told us to take care of them. If we let them leave just like that, how are we going to explain it to them?" She paused and played with her bright red nails. "Besides, even if we let them go, those immortals won't let us go. Besides, they said that as long as we succeed, we will be rewarded." Humph! How could the words of those people be taken seriously? In my opinion, they want to borrow the hands of that ghost Dr. Fengjiu to exterminate our Yao clan. Otherwise, why would they send them to us instead of other places? Was Fengjiu a pushover? She's the Lord of Heaven and Earth. Back then, when the Devil Lord fought with her, he ended up with his soul scattered. Our strength isn't even as strong as the Devil Lord, and she doesn't have any conflict of interest with us. Why should we provoke her? The Demon King said coldly. Looking at Du Fan and Ling Hua, he said to the Demon Empress, "Let them go. Let them leave as soon as possible." Chapter 46-73. How can that be the same? Just listen to me. There won't be a mistake. The Demon King said. "I really want to meet her, but I'm afraid she won't come." The Demon Empress chuckled and didn't take the Demon King's words to heart. Fengjiu listened for a moment and her heart moved. She quietly retreated to a dark corner and took out a talisman from her spatial zone. With a twist of her hand, the talisman flew out. Not long later, her voice came from the direction she came from. "Hand over my people." The voice came from the other side and echoed because of the underground palace. The voice was cold and carried killing intent. In an instant, the hundreds of demons were shocked and quickly dispersed. Not good. It must be that Fengjiu. The Demon King was shocked and his voice carried a trace of panic. He didn't want to be enemies with Fengjiu and didn't want to fight with her. If they fought their way in, then, what are you afraid of? I'll go meet her. The Demon Empress snorted and twisted her body like a water snake. She said to the small demons, "Leave a few to watch. The rest, follow me." Yes. As soon as the order was given, the demons followed the Demon Empress and walked towards the palace in a grandiose manner. When they moved forward, Fengjiu flashed and came to the side of Du Fan and Ling Hua. She slashed with the sharp blade in her hand and killed a few demons that were guarding at the side. With a slash of the green-edged sword chi, she put them down. You! The Demon King was originally sitting and sighing when he suddenly saw a red figure flash out. He was instantly shocked. When he looked closely, he saw that the person was dressed in red and had an extremely beautiful appearance. Her aura was restrained, but her entire body was emitting a powerful and intimidating aura. Even though he had never seen Fengjiu before, he knew that this woman was definitely the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. You're the ghost Dr. Fengjiu? The Demon King looked at her, and the face in the mist gradually revealed its facial features. It was not outstanding, but on the contrary, it was a little scary. At this moment it was staring at Fengjiu. Fengjiu ignored it. Instead, he pinched Ling Hua and Du Fan's Renzhong acupuncture points to wake them up. If she wasn't worried that those demons would attack them, she wouldn't even have to waste an incarnation talisman to lure them away. Master! When the two of them woke up, they were startled for a moment. They quickly got up, but they felt that their legs were a little numb, as if it was caused by a blockage of blood and qi. It's good that you're awake. As Fengjiu spoke, he looked at the Demon King and said, "From what you said just now, someone wants to borrow your hands to kill me? Do you know who they are?" As she spoke, she slowly walked forward. Her green-tipped sword, which was suffused with a sharp green glow, was pointed diagonally at the ground as she approached step by step. The Demon King's strength wasn't weak, but he didn't want to be Fengjiu's enemy, so he didn't want to attack. He hurriedly said, let's talk things over. I want to know, who exactly are those people you're talking about? Fengjiu asked. They. As soon as the Demon King's voice was heard, there was a commotion. Kill them! The Demon Empress' voice was heard, and she ordered the small demons to go forward. The reason why Du Fan and Ling Hua were hit at the beginning was probably because they were careless and didn't expect that it would be these monsters. At this moment, seeing these monsters attacking them, Du Fan sneered and said, "Then let's see who kills who." Chapter 46-74. Swish! Clang! Bang! 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 For a moment, the sharp sound of air currents, the sound of swords clashing, and the heavy sound of attacks resounded in the underground palace. The scene instantly became chaotic. Over 100 demons surrounded Fengjiu and the other two. Green demon blood splattered all over the ground. Screams and roars echoed in the underground palace, lingering for a long time. Stop fighting! Stop fighting! All of you, stop! The Demon King roared loudly. However, Fengjiu and the others wouldn't listen to him. The demons covered their heads and fled in all directions. Seeing that they couldn't escape, they could only fight to the death. Some of them revealed their true forms to fight. However, facing Fengjiu, Du Fan, and Ling Hua, these demons' combat strength was still too weak. The only ones who could fight against them were probably the Demon King and the Demon Empress. Looking at the dead little demons on the ground, a trace of bloodthirsty savagery flashed through the Demon Empress' eyes. She stared at Fengjiu's peerlessly beautiful face and looked at her body, revealing a strange smile. She spread out her hands and twisted her body, transforming into a snake demon with a human face and a snake body. As the snake body and hands moved, a faint hissing sound could be heard amidst the chaos. Fengjiu looked down and saw snakes slithering out from the ground. Some were as thin as chopsticks, some were the size of a finger, and some were 2 fingers wide. These snakes were brightly colored, and some even had bright crowns on their heads. Just by looking at the color of these snakes, one could tell that they were extremely poisonous. Although the 3 of them had poison-resistant physiques, and even poison couldn't do anything to them, no one was willing to be bitten by these snakes. Thus, when Fengjiu slashed out a sword chi with the Qinfeng sword in her hand, she raised the flame in her palm and injected it into the sword chi. The flame followed the sword chi and suddenly shot out with a whoosh, burning the ground. "Get behind me!" Fengjiu shouted clearly, telling Du Fan and Ling Hua to return to her side. When the two heard her voice, they simultaneously leaped up and quickly came to their master's side. However, just as they stood behind her, they saw a red figure rush out, heading straight for the Demon Empress. Seeing Fengjiu make a move, the Demon King instinctively wanted to help. However, after taking a step forward, he stopped. Ghost Dr. Fengjiu was the master of heaven and earth. Even in the demon realm, he had heard of her powerful method. Her strongest point wasn't her heaven-defying alchemy skills, but her shocking combat strength. How many experts had to die in her hands for her name, Ghost Dr. Fengjiu, to spread throughout the world? He didn't dare to provoke her, nor did he dare to make her his enemy. Because he knew that if he made her his enemy, he would be the one to die in the end. He just didn't expect that the people above would trick them. They sent Fengjiu here. Whether Fengjiu killed them or they killed Fengjiu, it was a win-win situation for those people. But now, things had developed to this point, and he couldn't stop it. He knew that the Demon Empress would definitely die. If he dared to make a move, even he would definitely die under Fengjiu's sword. Chapter 46-75. Green demonic blood splattered as the Demon Empress' head was chopped off and flew out, rolling among the demons. One of the demons didn't seem to be able to react as it blankly reached out to catch the flying head. Just like that, it looked at the Demon Empress' head and her eyes that were wide open with fear and unwillingness. It was so frightened that it shrieked. Following that shriek, the little demon instinctively threw the Demon Empress' head up to someone else. This time, no one stood there foolishly to catch the demon head. Instead, they automatically retreated and allowed the Demon Empress' head to fall to the ground and roll a few times until it stopped moving. The surrounding demons didn't dare to make a single sound. They widened their eyes in shock and fear as they watched the Demon Empress' head being chopped off. They watched as the Demon Empress' snake body fell to the ground with a bang and was stepped on by the red-clothed human lady. Then, the green glowing sword in her hand directly and ruthlessly stabbed down. Just like that, she cut open the Demon Empress' stomach in front of all the demons and took out the Demon Empress' snake gallbladder and her inner core. Even if they were demons, they were so shocked by that bloody and cruel scene that their faces turned pale. They swallowed their saliva and retreated, afraid that they would end up like the Demon Empress. The Demon King was also shocked by that scene. It didn't expect that Fengjiu would directly take out the Demon Empress' snake gallbladder and inner core without saying anything. Furthermore, she cut open the Demon Empress' stomach in front of all the demons. That scene and that method shocked even the Demon King. Does anyone still want to die? I don't mind sending it on its way. Fengjiu turned around and swept her cold gaze across all the demons before finally landing on the Demon King. Being swept by her gaze, all the demons instinctively retreated and didn't dare to make a sound. The Demon King looked at the dead Demon Empress and seemed to want to say something. In the end, it only turned into a sigh. I advised it not to go against you. I didn't expect. Fengjiu looked at him coldly and said, "You have no intention of opposing me. Even if you are a demon, I will not attack you. However, if you want to avenge your Demon Empress, I will naturally accompany you." The underground flames were still burning. The demons avoided the flames and looked at their Demon King. "I naturally do not wish to go against the Ghost Doctor." The Demon King sighed and said, "The Demon Empress is in the wrong for capturing your men. Now that you have killed her, I hope that Ghost Physician can be magnanimous and let my little demons go. As for what Ghost Physician wants to know, I will tell you everything I know." Fengjiu's eyes flickered when she heard this. She glanced at the Demon King and immediately waved her hand to extinguish the burning flames. However, as the flames were extinguished, the smell of burnt flesh wafted out from the ground. It was very pungent. "Ghost Physician, this way please," the Demon King said and gestured for them to enter. Fengjiu saw and followed him forward. Behind them, Du Fan and Ling Hua followed unhurriedly. They followed the Demon King to a cave abode. It was a cave abode at the bottom of a mountain. Unlike the underground palace, it looked more like a place where the Demon King cultivated. Ghost Physician, have a seat. Chapter 46-76. His voice paused for a moment, a trace of hesitation could be seen on his face. Then, as if he had made up his mind about something, he clenched his teeth and said, I didn't want things to turn out this way. I didn't want to be enemies with the ghost doctor, and I didn't know that they would send her to our demon realm. We only found out after she came to our side. Those people above want us to kill you, and the demon empress didn't even discuss with me before capturing your two subordinates. Fengjiu interrupted him. I already know all this. What I want to know is about those people who want to kill me. Those four are the four great experts of the immortal realm, also known as the four great emperors. That's all I know. I don't know anything else. After all, the immortal realm isn't a place where we can go. The Demon King said, indicating that he didn't know much else. Four great emperors? Fengjiu's eyes flashed. After a moment of silence, he asked, I saw a barrier set up in the sky of the demon realm. Now that we want to leave, do you have a way to send us away? Of course I can send you away. Hearing that she wanted to leave, the Demon King's heart relaxed. This killing god, he didn't dare to let her stay in the demon realm. Since she was willing to leave, he would naturally send her away as soon as possible. Then let's go. My flying ship is parked some distance away from here. If you send us away, we'll drop this matter. Fengjiu said slowly, glancing at the surrounding demons. And so, Fengjiu led the Demon King, Du Fan, Leng Hua, and the others in the direction of the flying ship. At the flying ship, the surroundings were pitch black. Demon Qi was surging in the air, and faintly, there was a little bit of green light floating in the air. The masked man stood at the bow of the ship with the three children by his side. Leng Hua also stood at the side, waiting for her master to return. The surroundings were quiet, and no one on the airship spoke. Fire Phoenix landed on the shoulder of Mu Chen and also didn't speak. The two cloud-swallowing beasts were lying on the side. Perhaps feeling that the atmosphere was somewhat oppressive, Yu pulled the robe of the masked man. Feeling his robe being pulled, he turned around and lowered his head to look at the little guy beside him. Seeing her delicate and cute little face, his eyes couldn't help but soften as he asked, What's wrong? Will anything happen to my mother? Yu raised her head and asked. Her beautiful eyes were filled with worry. Hearing this, his lips curled into a smile. No, with your mother's strength, even if she were to meet the ruler of the demon realm, she would still be able to win. Then can we leave from here? Yu asked again. Don't worry. As long as I am not here, nothing will happen. Moreover, your mother is also not someone to be trifled with, so even if it is somewhat troublesome, in the end, we will definitely leave this place safely. He rubbed the head of Yu and revealed a smile. Then are the people who want to harm us very powerful? My mother can't beat them now? Since you're so powerful, then do you know where my father is now? When will he come back? Yu grabbed the hand that was rubbing her head and threw out one question after another. Children shouldn't think too much, these questions are useless. He smiled but didn't answer her. Chapter 46-77. Seeing the great demon behind Fengjiu, the masked man's eyes flashed with a smile as he muttered, Looks like things are going to be interesting from now on. The archfiend followed Fengjiu to the outside of the ship. When he saw the ancient mythological beast Fire Phoenix and the two sacred beasts, his eyes narrowed. He didn't go in, but said to Fengjiu, Ghost Doctor, you guys go in. I'll send you guys out. Okay. Fengjiu replied and brought Du Fan and Leng Hua into the barrier. Mother! Mother, you're back! Mother! The three children quickly came to her side. Seeing that she had returned safely, the three of them revealed happy smiles. You're back. Let's go. Mother will bring you guys into the cabin. The archfiend will send us out, but the ship will probably still shake. She took the three children into the cabin, but she didn't let them stay in the cabin. Instead, she directly sent them into the space. After closing the cabin door, Fengjiu walked out and gestured for Du Fan and the others to sit down so that they wouldn't be shaken out. The masked man stood at the front of the ship. He glanced at Fengjiu and said, "It looks like I still underestimated you." Fengjiu glanced at him and slowly said, "You should be glad that we're not enemies." Hearing this, the masked man smiled and looked at the sky. "Indeed, those who are your enemies should be restless right now." Fengjiu didn't say anything, because at this moment, the archfiend outside the ship was emitting a huge amount of demonic qi. His figure instantly became 10 times bigger, as if he was holding up the sky. He let out a low roar and his hands tore a hole in the sky. The hole was pushed open by the demonic qi, as if it wanted to close but couldn't. The Demon King stretched out his hand and lifted the spaceship that was parked below and sent it through the exit in the sky. As the spaceship was sent out, the opening behind it also closed as if it had never appeared. "We're back." Fengjiu looked at the familiar sky. At this moment it was already dark, but the sky was dotted with stars. The spiritual energy in the air faintly flowed. The aura was so familiar. She smiled and controlled the ship to fly slowly while walking into the cabin. Not long after, she brought the 3 children out. "Mother, we're back." You happily jumped up and down on the ship. Fengjiu smiled and bent down to pick her up. She looked at the masked man. 2 more days. I'll accompany them for 2 days. After 2 days you can take them away. She also knew that the current situation was not suitable for the 3 children to be by her side. Even if she was reluctant to part with them, they would have to part in the end. Yuer's mother. Mothers. Ter mother two's on her on. Fengjiu sighed softly and said, "Yuer, be good. Mother is doing this for your own good. You saw what happened today. This isn't the first time, and it won't be the last. If you follow Mother, sooner or later, you'll encounter danger again." You listened to her and didn't say anything. Hao and Mu Chen, who were standing at the side, lowered their heads and closed their eyes. It was unknown what they were thinking. Chapter 46-78. The masked man curled his lips when he heard the word master from the little girl's mouth. He smiled and said, "Little girl, it seems that you will only call me master when you need my help. Unfortunately, even I am unable to fulfill your request." "Why can't you do it? Didn't you say you were very powerful?" Yuer asked. He chuckled. "No matter how powerful I am, I can't block the light of her star of the Phoenix. If I bring her up to the immortal realm, it will really be a mess up there." He looked at Fengjiu and said, "Although I can't bring you up there, you can ascend on your own in the future. By then, you should have the ability to fight with those people. You will only be useful when you ascend. If you ascend now, you can only flee everywhere. Just help me protect the 3 children. I don't need to trouble you with anything else. If I want to ascend, I will naturally be able to do so. There's no need to rush," Fengjiu said. He looked at him and said, 2 days. You can take them with you in 2 days. Okay. He didn't say much and directly agreed. In the next 2 days, Fengjiu spent most of his time with the 3 children. He taught them some things and gave them some things to store in their space as a precaution. They especially cherished the time they had left together. However, no matter how reluctant they were, the day had finally arrived. Early in the morning, the flying ship was still slowly flying. Everyone on the ship gathered at the bow and looked at the masked man and the 3 children. "Mother, what should we do when we miss you in the future?" Yuer threw herself into Fengjiu's arms with tears in her eyes. Although Hao and Mu Chen didn't say anything, their eyes were also red. They stood quietly at the side and looked at their mother as if they wanted to engrave her face in their minds. "It's okay. When you get there, listen to your master's words and cultivate. After sending you off, I will also go into seclusion for a period of time. When the time is right, I will prepare to ascend. When everything is settled, I will personally look for you," she said softly, comforting their young and uneasy hearts. Mother, what about Father? Will Father come with Mother to find us? Mu Chin couldn't help but ask. We will. Mother and your father will come to look for you. So before that, you must be obedient and don't run around. Take good care of yourselves and don't distract Mother and Father. Feng Jiu held his hand and then Hao-er's. He put their hands together and said, You 3 siblings must support each other and grow up safely. Yes, yes. Mother, we understand. We will definitely be obedient. The 3 of them nodded heavily as they spoke, their eyes full of seriousness. You can keep this item. Maybe it can help you in the future. The masked man handed something to Feng Jiu. It looked like a seal, but it also looked like an immortal tool. Feng Jiu did not refuse and took it with both hands. Thank you. In the future, the 3 children will have to trouble you. Okay, then we will go first. In the future, we will meet in the immortal realm. As he spoke, he glanced at Feng Jiu and formed an ancient seal with both hands. He pointed at the 3 children's eyebrows. With a flash of golden light, the 3 children disappeared. Chapter 46-79. Feng Jiu stared blankly as the golden light disappeared into the sky along with the 3 children. Her heart was filled with reluctance and disappointment. She stood at the bow of the ship and watched silently for a long time before returning to the cabin. I'm going to rest for a bit, call me when we reach Heavenly Mountain. Du Fan, Ling Hua, and Ling Shuang sighed in their hearts. They also couldn't bear for the 3 little masters to leave, but they also knew that leaving was the best option for them. In the upper immortal realm, in a palace, 4 great experts were sitting together discussing matters. Didn't you say that Feng Jiu was sent to the demon realm? Why did I hear that the demon king sent her back? What the hell is going on? Did you not send someone to investigate? A man in black robes who looked to be in his 30s asked in a deep voice. His eyes were as sharp as a blade, making it hard for others to look straight at him. Who knew that the demon king would be so cowardly? He didn't even dare to take revenge after seeing the demon empress killed, and instead sent Feng Jiu's group away. Another person frowned, his dignified face filled with displeasure. What a waste of such a good opportunity. Feng Jiu is the destined phoenix star, how could she die so easily in the demon realm? In my opinion, Feng Jiu's life should be taken by us, others can't be counted on. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man. He stood up with his hands behind his back and looked at the other 3. Just wait. There will always be a chance to take her life. That Xianyuan Mose, didn't he die in our hands? Speaking of that Xianyuan Mose, it's said that the spiritual energy in that world hasn't completely dissipated, and is still gradually solidifying. I'm afraid that Xianyuan Mose isn't dead yet, perhaps he's still recuperating somewhere, waiting for an opportunity. Another person frowned in thought. If that's the case, then it's a bit troublesome. The other person took a sip of the spirit tea and said disapprovingly, What trouble? If they want to ascend, they'll have to go through 81 heavenly lightning bolt. Are we afraid we won't have a chance to interfere? No matter how strong they are, can they be stronger than the 4 of us? That's true. However, the growth of the 2 of them is too shocking. If they are allowed to grow, they will become the rulers of the world. At that time, how can we still have the status of the 4 great emperors? A mere little cultivator from the lower realms. Even if he controls a part of the world, if he dares to compete with us, we will naturally not tolerate him. The middle-aged man snorted. If they want to ascend, we'll have to see if they have the ability. They looked at each other and smiled at the same time. They picked up their teacups and took a sip. One of them said, That's right. We are the almighty beings of the world and the great emperors of the 4 directions. How difficult is it for us to take the lives of those 2? If we want them to live, they won't die. If we want them to die, they won't live either. Ha 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 ha. Well said. Come, let me use tea in place of wine to toast you all. Another person laughed heartily and toasted them with a cup of spirit tea. Chapter 46-80. They drank spiritual tea and chatted for a while. When they stood up and were about to leave, one of them suddenly stopped and looked back at the three of them. Speaking of which, it seems that there hasn't been much news about Emperor Qing of Cloud Sky Mountain recently. He has never interacted with us, and we haven't paid much attention to him. Why did you suddenly mention him? Another person asked. I just feel like I haven't seen him for a long time. Last year, the South Sea Emperor held a banquet, but I didn't see him. Emperor Qing has always thought highly of himself and never interacted with us. Moreover, I heard that his beloved disciple failed to pass the tribulation and was reduced to ashes. I don't think he'll come out easily. Although we haven't fought against him, I've always heard people say that Emperor Qing is the strongest among all the great emperors. Especially after he came out of seclusion a few years ago, his strength increased greatly. One of them had a serious expression. He sighed softly and said, "But fortunately, he doesn't care about the affairs of all the great emperors and has always been a lone wolf. This is good. He won't get in our way." When they heard this, they nodded and didn't say anything else as they walked out. Emperor Qing's strength was unfathomable, but he was also someone who didn't care about the outside world. Since he wouldn't get in their way, they naturally wouldn't pay too much attention to him. Right now, they still had to deal with Fengjiu. The two titles of the Star of the Phoenix and the Master of the World were really a big threat to them. And the person they were afraid of had already arrived at the foot of Sky Mountain in a spaceship. Fengjiu looked at the snow-white Sky Mountain and said to Du Fan and the others, "Wait for me here. I'll go up and take a look." As she spoke, she got out of the spaceship and headed up the mountain. However, what she didn't expect was that when she stepped into the boundary of Sky Mountain and wanted to go up the mountain, she found that she couldn't. Looking at the boundary that appeared because of her touch, her eyes moved slightly and she stopped in her tracks. Only then did she notice that the entire Sky Mountain was covered by the boundary. The powerful boundary was like a transparent cover that protected Sky Mountain. She stared at it in a daze and for a moment, she was a little lost. Was it because of Tianjizi's death that the boundary of Sky Mountain was activated? Or was it because of something else? Is Emo-chun still on Sky Mountain? Or had he already ascended to become an immortal? Questions surfaced in her mind one after another. However, she didn't forcefully break through the barrier. Instead, she paused for a moment before turning around and walking towards the spaceship. Not long after Fengjiu left, Du Fan and the others also discovered the barrier that had appeared on Tianshan Mountain. Just as they were feeling surprised, they saw their master return. "Master, are we unable to go up?" Du Fan asked. Fengjiu shook his head and said, "They set up a barrier. I think they don't want anyone to go up." Hearing this, they looked at each other. In the end, Ling Hua asked, "Master, where are we going next?" Fengjiu looked at the sky, pondered for a moment and said, "Go back. Next, I need to find a place to cultivate in seclusion. Investigate and see if you can find out where Mose is. If you have any news, inform me." Chapter 4681. In a certain part of the sea, Xianyuan Mose, who was nowhere to be found, was sleeping in the deep sea. He was surrounded by unfathomable seawater, and his whole body seemed to be surrounded by a bubble. He lay quietly in it, motionless. His breath was extremely weak, as if he was dead. In the deep sea, there were some spiritual fish and sea monsters swimming in the depths of the sea. However, they all naturally avoided the place where Xianyuan Mose was. The bubble on his body was suffused with a gentle light, and its breath was extremely strong. The bubble was suffused with a layer of faint cyan light. In the deep sea, if one did not look carefully, they would not be able to detect it. Those spiritual fish and sea monsters in the deep sea did not dare to approach Xianyuan Mose. However, the spiritual breath in the sea seeped into his body, and he did not feel it at all. He just lay there quietly, sleeping in the immortal world. At Cloud Sky Mountain, the three children were sleeping in a thatched hut. Perhaps it was the sunlight outside that shone in. How who was on the bed, opened his eyes and sat up. When he saw the simple and crude thatched hut, he was startled for a moment as if he had thought of something. After a while, he came back to his senses. Mu Chun and Mu Yu, who were on the other two beds, rubbed their eyes and sat up as well. Big brother? What's wrong? Yu asked. Because she had just woken up, her hair was a little messy. However, even her messy hair made her delicate little face look adorable. Nothing. I just thought that I should get up and cultivate, Howard said and looked at the sky outside. The morning sun was gentle and warm. It was very comfortable. He got out of bed and said to the two, "You two also get up and wash up. We will go outside to cultivate." Okay. The two little ones responded and got up to wash up. After a simple wash, Yu came to find How with messy hair. "Big brother, help me tie my hair." How had just stretched his muscles and bones, and after hearing the sound, he turned around. Seeing Yu with messy hair coming over, he walked over and said, "Yu, big brother will teach you how to tie it yourself. You properly learn how to tie it, okay?" Hearing this, Yu raised her head and looked at him, then finally nodded her head. "Okay. Yu is so obedient." How smiled and praised her. He then led her back to the room and had her sit in front of the bronze mirror while teaching her how to tie her hair. Yu also earnestly watched and learned. Merely, she couldn't help but ask, "Big brother, how come we haven't seen our master since he came back? How could he just leave us here and not care about us? Does he not want us anymore? If he doesn't want us, will he send us back to mother?" Hearing this, Mu Chun also listened attentively. Ever since they came back, they had not seen the person who brought them here and said that he was their master. Moreover, they had been thrown here to live in the thatched hut for a few days. Other than the three of them, there was no one else here. Chapter 4682. Mu Chun and Mu Yu looked outside, and when they saw the Baifeng divine bird, they didn't say anything. These days, they indeed didn't see their unreliable master, but this divine bird has been guarding them here, and also brought them some spirit feather chicken as food. "Well, Yu, do you know how to tie it?" Howard looked at her and asked. Yu looked at her and nodded with a smile. Yu knows how to tie it. Moreover, Yu also knows how to braid it. Later on, Yu will tie her own hair. That's good, let's go. Let's go outside to cultivate," he said to the two. Okay. The two followed him out and went to the open space outside, and followed him to learn each and every move. The Baifeng divine bird, which had been flying in the sky for a while, glanced down at them, then landed on another mountain not far away, watching the three of them gesticulating. At noon, that Baifeng divine bird on the mountain seemed to have sensed something, and looked towards the direction of the main peak, and with a flap of its wings, it flew towards that direction. And at that main peak, the stone door of an immortal's cave slowly opened, and a white figure walked out from inside. His steps were steady and elegant, and along with his walk, his white robe slightly fluttered, as if his body carried an immortal aura, making people unconsciously hold their breath, as if they were afraid of alarming the immortal in the mountain. Other than his outstanding immortal temperament, his appearance was also extremely outstanding. His unforgettable appearance could be said to be a banished immortal. However, his immortal aura was like that of a banished immortal, but because of his pair of peach blossom eyes, it added a bit of evil. His entire body exuded an aura that was both good and evil. His black hair was casually draped over his shoulders, and there wasn't even a hair band to tie his hair, just casually and naturally draped over his shoulders. As he walked out of the immortal's cave, he looked at the sky, and saw that Baifeng divine bird had returned to his side. He then hooked his lips and asked, "How are those three little guys? They came to look for you after they woke up, but they have been cultivating by themselves for the past few days. They tried to run around, but I stopped them. I let them move around the thatched hut. Master, do you want to see them?" The Bai Fong divine bird asked, tilting its head to look at him. It's time to meet them. Go and bring them here, he said as he slowly walked to the stone table under the big tree and sat down. The Bai Fong divine bird flapped its wings and flew away. When it came to the 3 children, it stopped beside them and said, "Come on up. I'll take you to see my master." Hearing this, Hao Mu Chun and Mu Yu were startled. They looked at each other and jumped onto the back of the divine bird. Their hands tightly grasped the feathers, and their bodies rose up with the divine bird. They looked around and felt the wind blowing against their faces. Therefore, they closed their eyes. After a while, they felt the Bai Fong bird stop. "We're here. Come down." As the Bai Fong bird said, it squatted down and let the 3 children down. The 3 of them looked around, and their eyes naturally fell on the person sitting under the tree. For a moment, the 3 of them were slightly startled because they felt that this person didn't look like the master who brought them here. Chapter 4683. Hearing this, the Qing Emperor tilted his head slightly, glanced at her, and laughed in spite of himself. "Little girl, have you forgotten your master?" He turned around, raised his hand, and swept the surroundings, saying, "Then look around, do you feel the slightest bit familiar?" After hearing his words, Yu Er's eyes widened, and her pair of big eyes seemed to be able to speak as she stared at him. After a long while, her soft voice was filled with surprise as she said, "Master? It doesn't look like it. Although that strange master always wears a mask, I can also recognize that he doesn't look like you. Besides, this is the first time I've come here, so how can I feel that it's familiar?" The Qing Emperor smiled and said, "That body was only used when I descended to the mortal world, and it wasn't my real body. This is my real body. Your mother already knew about this matter, but because her spirit was somewhat unstable after she came back, she had to rest for a few days." "So, you're the master that we've worshipped?" Yu blinked her eyes, still staring at him. She felt that her master's pair of eyes were very good-looking. It was as if he had been smiling all along, making her unable to help but want to smile along with him. "And it's the real deal." He chuckled, glanced at the 3 of them, and said, 3 days later, Master will remove the blood curse on your body. At that time, your contracted beasts that are suppressed will also wake up. However, Master wants to tell you that you also know that you're in a dangerous situation. There are many people outside who want to take your lives, and even use you to threaten your mother. You 3 little troublemakers have been handed over to me by your mother. In the future, you must listen to Master's words, and don't provoke unnecessary trouble." The 3 of them nodded and responded. In addition, Qing Ming Emperor is Master's honorific name. People outside call me Emperor Qing. You must remember, from now on, if anyone asks who your master is, you must say that Qing Ming Emperor of Cloud Sky Mountain is your master. Master's name outside can also protect you from being bullied by various experts," he said indifferently, looking at the 3 children. Seeing that they were listening seriously, he was very satisfied. The corners of his mouth slightly curled up, and a trace of a smile appeared in his eyes. We understand," the 3 of them earnestly said, secretly remembering what he had said. "Also, now that you're under my tutelage, you don't need to use your previous names. I'll give you new names. In the future, when you're outside, you can just use the names I've given you. As for your original names, you must remember not to mention them. Otherwise, you'll get yourself killed. Do you understand?" He continued. "Master." The 3 of them. "Use Master." Yu curiously. "And from B." When he said the name Yunqi, his eyes slightly flashed, and he looked towards Yu. This little girl was crooking her head and muttering the name Yunqi. Seeing this, his eyes couldn't help but soften. "Thank you, Master," Hao and Mu Chen said in unison. They knew that if they changed their names, no one would know that their parents were Xianyuan Mo's and Fengjiu in the future. Chapter 4684. Yes, you'll be called Yunqi. From now on, I'll call you Little Qi. He smiled as if he was in a very good mood. His entire person looked very happy. Hao glanced at him and felt that the name he gave their little sister was a little strange. Moreover, when he called her by her name, his expression was much gentler. Thinking about how he treated their little sister differently during this period of time and the current situation, he suppressed the doubts in his heart and did not ask. Compared to him, he trusted their mother's judgment more. Since their mother allowed them to acknowledge him as their master and follow him here, it was enough to prove that this person could be trusted. All right, next, I'll tell you about the situation here. He looked at the three children and said, as you can see, there's no one else here other than you three. Therefore, you have to take care of your own food, clothing, housing, and transportation here. This cloud sky mountain is protected by a boundary array, so outsiders can't enter. Similarly, you can't leave either. He looked at the three of them and walked slowly with his hands clasped behind his back. His lips curled up slightly as he said, however, there are also spiritual medicine fields and spiritual fruit trees in this mountain. The ones that usually take care of the spiritual fruit trees and spiritual medicine fields are all puppets that I made. In this mountain, other than my cave residence, Little Seven's cave residence is ready-made. As for the two of you, you can go back and see which place you like and dig your own cave residence. The stone tables and chairs in the cave residence can also be cut down in the forest behind the mountain to make them. In here, you have to do everything by yourself. Of course. Of course, of course. He paused and looked at the three of them. If you learn how to make puppets, you can also let the puppets help you do these things. Every half a year, I'll give you a small test, and every year, a big test. I'll bring you out to spar with other people. After 2 days, after the blood curse in your body is removed, I'll accompany you down the mountain and take you to the city to buy some things you need. You can prepare and see what you need to buy. In the future, you can leave the mountain once every 3 months, but I'll only take you this time. In the future, when you go down the mountain, you have to go by yourself. Master, then can we go anywhere we want in the entire Cloud Sky Mountain? The little girl blinked her beautiful big eyes and looked at him excitedly. Yes, you can naturally go to Cloud Sky Mountain as you wish. Emperor Qing nodded and said to her, let's go. Master will bring you to take a look at your cave. Okay. You, excitedly answered, then hurriedly pulled her 2 brothers and followed him towards the immortal cave. Following their master, they arrived at an immortal cave. Upon entering that immortal cave, Hao Mu Chun and Yu were slightly surprised, because this immortal cave looked as if someone had lived here before. Everything inside was very complete. Moreover, at the side of this immortal cave, there was also a small kitchen. Master, who used to live here? Hao asked as he looked at the Qing Emperor, who was looking around the cave abode with his hands behind his back. This is the place where your senior sister used to live in the past. However, she failed to cross the tribulation and turned into ashes. Since then, this place has always been empty. Cyan Emperor said. He looked at Yu and said, little girl, you will live here in the future. Chapter 4685. Okay, from now on, you will live here. He rubbed her head and said to her, take a look and see if you are lacking anything. After a few days, we will go down the mountain to buy it. Okay. Yu was all smiles as she answered. Hao looked at him and asked, Master, can you teach us how to make puppets first? They were still young, so many things were much more difficult for them to do by themselves. If they had puppets, it would be a lot more convenient. Qing Emperor glanced at him and walked out with his hands behind his back. He said, you all, come with me. They followed him to the side of the stone table outside the cave. Seeing him take out several pieces of talisman paper, he took out cinnabar and a brush and placed them on the table. He said to them, first, I will teach you how to use talisman to make puppets. For now, it will be easier for you to learn. Look carefully." He glanced at them and picked up the brush. After dipping it in cinnabar, he drew a rune on the talisman paper. He stopped writing and said to them, "Draw according to this rune. You must finish it in one stroke. When you lift the brush, you must pour your spiritual energy into the brush." "Master, can this be used as a puppet?" Yu curiously looked at that talisman paper. Qing Emperor picked up that talisman paper, activated the talisman, and lightly threw it out. After that talisman landed on the ground, it transformed into a handsome young man. Seeing this, the three children couldn't help but open their eyes wide. Their eyes were full of amazement. "Go boil a pot of water and make a cup of tea," Qing Emperor instructed. That young puppet complied and turned around to prepare to boil water and make tea. "Master, master, how did you do it? So awesome!" Yu excitedly said. She stepped forward and said, "I also want to learn, I also want to learn." Qing Emperor smiled and said, "When you draw a talisman paper and activate it, you only need to think about what you want this puppet to look like, and it will transform according to your thoughts. However, this kind of talisman puppet has a time limit. In the future, when you learn how to make high-level puppets, you only need to stuff some crystal stones on it, and it will always listen to your orders. Moreover, it will also be a very good fighter." He stood up, brushed his robe, and said, "Okay, you all can learn first." He took out some talisman paper from the space and gave it to them. He also took out 2 talisman brushes and some cinnabar. Then, he walked to a cool place. With a wave of his hand, a soft couch appeared in front of him, and he lay on it to rest. Although Mu Chun and Mu Yu were young, they were gifted and had always been intelligent. And wise, on the other hand, they practiced. Mu! And, as soon as he opened his eyes and looked back, he saw how toss out a talisman. As it activated, the talisman transformed into a man. I didn't expect this child's talent and comprehension to be so outstanding. He only practiced for an afternoon and he actually mastered it? How outstanding would he be when he grew up with such talent in the future? At this moment, he couldn't help but look forward to how amazing his 3 disciples would be when they grew up in the future. Chapter 46-86. Mu Chen's eyes lit up with joy when he saw that his brother had finished drawing the talisman. He looked at his brother with adoration. In his heart, he secretly made up his mind to draw seriously and learn as soon as possible. Hao looked at the person who appeared with a smile on his little face. "Yes, I've learned it. Let me teach you." He stepped forward and stood beside the 2. "Let's stop here for today. It's getting dark and you've practiced for the whole afternoon. Continue tomorrow." Emperor Qing walked over and looked at the 3. "Do you want to eat fasting pills or roast chicken? Master, do you have rice? I want to eat porridge." Yu whispered, "No." He shook his head and looked at the little girl's disappointed expression. "Remember to buy some spirit rice when you go down the mountain in 2 days. You can also let the puppets plant spirit rice in the spiritual fields on the mountain." "Okay. Then we'll buy some seeds and bring them back." She suddenly perked up and smiled with her eyes narrowed. Today they ate roast chicken in the end. Because Hao and Mu Chun didn't have a cave residence yet, they went back to sleep in the thatched cottage. Yu didn't want to live in a cave residence alone, so she also slept in the thatched cottage with them. The next morning, Hao drew a talisman early in the morning and summoned a puppet to help him open up a cave residence. He and Mu Chun chose a place not far from Yu's so that the 3 of them could keep each other company. After arranging for the puppet to open up the cave residence, he came back to teach Mu Chun and Mu Yu how to draw talismans. "It should be like this. Look, this is how you draw it." He held a brush and carefully taught. "You must inject your spiritual aura into the tip of the brush. Only with the cinnabar on the tip of the brush will the runes have spiritual aura. Big brother, do you think mine looks like it? Mu Chen picked up his own drawing and showed it to him. It's done. This is already a talisman, and it's a second-level one. Hao smiled and praised. Mu Chen is amazing. Because there was no one else in the mountain, they remembered the names their master had given them. They would use them when they left the mountain in the future. When there was no one else in the mountain, they would still use their old names out of habit. Big brother is the best. He's drawing third-level talismans. Mu Chen said, if I continue to draw, I can also draw third-level talismans. Yes, definitely. Hao nodded. While both of them were talking, Yu earnestly drew a talisman. Merely, the talisman she drew was somewhat crooked, moreover, it was also relatively small. But she compared the talisman drawn by their master, and finally determined that the talisman she drew was not wrong. Big brother, look, I've also drawn it. I'm also a second-rank talisman. She happily revealed a smiling face, and waved the talisman in her hand. On the other side, the three of them practiced the talisman for the entire morning. After familiarizing themselves with it, they let the puppet do some work for them. The three of them planned to take the opportunity to walk around Cloud Sky Mountain and familiarize themselves with the various environments here. At the main peak, when Emperor Qing learned that the three of them had already learned how to draw the puppet talisman, his pair of peach blossom eyes curved, and a hint of an expectant smile appeared on his handsome face. Chapter 4687. The Bifong bird, who was lying at the side, didn't even raise its head when it heard his words. It said, "These three people are originally from extraordinary backgrounds, so it's to be expected that they have outstanding talents. Their parents are Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu. How stupid can their children be? We didn't meet Xianyuan Mose this time, but Fengjiu is indeed not an ordinary person. It's only a matter of time before she becomes an immortal. Those people can't stop her," Emperor Qing said slowly as he looked at the sky and narrowed his eyes. On this day, Hao Mu Chen, and Mu Yu walked around the entire Cloud Sky Mountain and familiarized themselves with each mountain. At the same time, they also saw the spiritual herbs and some spiritual fruit trees planted in the spiritual field. They also knew that the entire Cloud Sky Mountain was just as their master had said. Other than the three of them, there was only their master and the Bifong bird. The rest were at most puppets. "Big brother, why don't you think master lives alone in such a big place, but he doesn't take in many disciples like others? Wouldn't there be people to work for him?" Yu asked curiously as she walked while holding her two brothers' hands. Hao held her little hand. As they walked, he said, "Master's personality is mild. He has his reasons for not wanting to open a sect and accept disciples. As his disciples, we shouldn't ask too much about things that we shouldn't. Sometimes, knowing too much isn't beneficial. Big brother, master will help us break the blood curse tomorrow. I'm a little worried." Mu Chen lowered his head and looked at the ground as he walked step by step. Hao gazed at him and said, "There's no need to worry. Master's strength is very strong. Moreover, Mother entrusted us to him and allowed us to take Master as our master. So, he's someone that Mother trusts. So, we have to trust him no matter what he does. Don't worry. Master will definitely break the blood curse." Hearing this, Mu Chen nodded in agreement. Hearing this, Yu smiled and said, "After breaking the blood curse, Master will let us go down the mountain. Big brother, have you thought about what to buy?" Without waiting for the two to speak, she smiled and said, "I want to buy seeds. I want the puppet to help me grow spirit rice. In the future, we will have spirit rice to eat. I also want to buy a lot of things." "Are you going to buy a pot or something? When we cook in the future, we will have to buy those, right?" Mu Chen said and looked at Yu. "There seems to be a pot in the small kitchen, but we can buy new ones and put some in the space." The three of them chatted as they walked towards the thatched hut. Perhaps because they had company, the three siblings were always together. Therefore, although they were away from their mother's side, as the days passed, they gradually got used to it. The next morning, they woke up early and washed up. Then, they went to their master's abode on the main peak to wait. Today was the day their master would remove the blood curse for them. They were a little nervous, but also a little expectant. Hao was fine because the blood curse on him had been broken long ago. Today, it was mainly Mu Chun and Mu Yu. However, what they didn't expect was that even though they had arrived early, their master slept until close to noon before waking up. Come in. Chapter 4688. The inside of the cave residence was very big. Although it was called a cave residence, it was more like a small palace. Moreover, there were several smaller caves, each separated by a certain distance. The walls of the cave residence were illuminated by luminous pearls. There was also fresh air flowing in the cave residence. Obviously, there were other exits. What are you waiting for? Come here. Emperor Qing gestured for the two younger ones to come forward. Mu Chun and Mu Yu walked forward and stopped in front of him. They looked at him, not knowing how he was going to help them break the blood curse. Emperor Qing glanced at the two standing in front of him and reached out to feel their pulse. After checking for a while, he stood up and walked to one of the caves. He said to the two of them, "You two, come with me." Seeing this, Mu Chun and Mu Yu hurriedly followed. Hao wanted to follow in to take a look, but was stopped. There are some books in the first cave on the left. Go in and take a look. You don't have to follow. You can't go in and you can't help even if you come in. Emperor Qing said without looking back. Hao stopped and stood there watching them enter the cave. Although he was worried, it was just as their master had said. He wouldn't be of much help even if he went in. Therefore, he paused for a moment and walked towards the first cave on the left. Pushing open the stone door, it opened with a creak. After he walked in, the stone door closed. At that moment, it was as if the sound outside was isolated. He looked around and saw that there was a soundproof barrier set up inside. Thus, he gathered his thoughts and walked towards the bookshelves. There were 10 rows of bookshelves filled with books. He went forward to take a look and picked up a book on the mental cultivation method shelf. He opened it and couldn't help but be surprised. This was a top-notch mental cultivation method book. It was divided into the 5 elements. He flipped through it and put it back. Then he walked to the back and picked up another book to read. This was a sword technique book. When he opened the book, some of the sword technique pictures shocked him. He felt that it was extremely exquisite and for a moment, he couldn't help but be immersed in it. While he was reading the manual, he accidentally lost track of time. While he was engrossed in it, his hands began to move uncontrollably. After an unknown amount of time, the stone door was pushed open and his master was standing outside. Only then did he regain his senses. He hurriedly put the sword back and hurried forward. Slightly worried, he asked, "Shizhuan, how are the two of them?" He looked behind him, but didn't see Mu Chun and Mu Yu. The blood curse has been broken, but they have fainted from the pain and are now sleeping in the cubicle. Emperor Qing said with his hands clasped behind his back. His face was paler than before, as if he had consumed a lot of spiritual energy to help them break the blood curse. The exhaustion between his eyebrows could not be concealed. "Master, how are you? Are you okay? Do you want to rest for a while? I'll get you a glass of water." Hao also noticed that his face was paler than before, so he quickly went to the stone table outside and poured a cup of water for him. Emperor Qing glanced at him and didn't refuse. Instead, he reached out to take the water and drank it. Then he handed the empty cup to him and said, "You don't have to worry about the two of them. The blood curse has been broken. Let them sleep and they will be awake tomorrow. Go and see them, but don't wake them up. I also need to rest." Chapter 4689. Seeing this, Hao hurriedly went to the previous stone room to take a look. As soon as he entered, he saw Mu Chun and Mu Yu lying side by side on the stone bed. Their clothes were soaked with sweat and tightly stuck to their bodies. They seemed to be enduring severe pain. Their lips were slightly bitten by them, and their hair was also soaked with sweat and stuck together. The sweat on their forehead was also not yet dry. He didn't dare to wake them up, so he quietly looked after them for a while. He took out a handkerchief to help them wipe the sweat on their body, and secretly used his spiritual power to help them dry their clothes. Only then did he accompany them. They slept until the next morning before waking up. Mu Chen woke up first and saw his elder brother lying on the bed sleeping. Just as he was about to get out of bed, Yu also woke up. How did elder brother fall asleep here? Yu rubbed her eyes and asked while yawning. She had just woken up and her little face was still confused, as if she still didn't remember what happened yesterday. You're awake. Hao also woke up at this time. Looking at them, he quickly asked, How do you feel? Are you feeling better? Qilin. Mu Chen suddenly called, and with a flash of light, Qilin Beast appeared in front of them. Brothers Qilin came out, then can I also call out my little spirit fox? Yu said in surprise and quickly called out, Little spirit fox, quickly come out. As soon as she finished speaking, the nine-tailed spirit fox appeared with a whoosh. It landed on the bed and looked around. It stretched and said, Master, the blood curse on your body has been removed. That thing has been pressing down on us. We can't get out. Great. The blood curse is really removed. Yu happily clapped her hands and quickly got out of bed, saying, Today Master will take us down the mountain to buy things, right? Let's go find Master now. After Master helped you to remove the blood curse yesterday, I saw his complexion was somewhat pale. I don't know if he is better today. Hao said, but he didn't stop Yu from walking out. Who would have thought that when they came out of the stone room, they saw their master sitting at the stone table, drinking tea and reading a book. Master! 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 Yu quickly stepped forward, and with a happy face, she walked in front of him. Hao and Mu Chen, on the other hand, stood a little further away. They bowed respectfully and called out to him before standing aside. Emperor Qin glanced at the nine-tailed fox and the Qilin beast and said to them, Take your contracted beasts back. Don't let them appear in front of others unless it is absolutely necessary. Seeing this, the two of them hurriedly recalled their contracted beasts back into the space. Master, are we going down the mountain now? Can we go down the mountain to eat something? Yu asked with a smile. The Azure Supreme Arch glanced at them and stretched out his hand to brush the three of them. The three of them felt a cool breeze blow past them. It was as if something had been taken away from their bodies, and they instantly felt refreshed. This wasn't the horsetail whisk technique. Master, what is this technique? Yu curiously asked. This is similar to the horsetail whisk technique. The difference is that the horsetail whisk technique only removes the dust and dirt on your clothes, but the cleansing technique makes you feel as if you have just taken a bath and changed your clothes. It can save you the trouble of taking a bath and changing your clothes, Emperor Qing said unhurriedly. Chapter 4690. Emperor Qing glanced at her and said, Although the technique is good, it's not like you don't bathe. This technique can be used occasionally when it's inconvenient to bathe outside. When the conditions are right, it's better to bathe and change clothes. As he spoke, he stood up and said, Our Cloud Sky Mountain has a total of 2 hot springs. In the future, you can go to the small one to bathe. The spring water of the spiritual pond can strengthen your muscles and bones, making your cultivation twice the result with half the effort. We know about that spiritual pond. We've seen it before. There are 2, one big and one small. However, it seems that there's a formation barrier there. Yu said. Alright, go back and wash up. Wait for me at the entrance of the mountain. He signaled them to go back and wash up first. Yes. The 3 of them answered and left together. They thought that it would take a lot of time to travel from Cloud Sky Mountain to the nearest town. Who would have thought that they would arrive at the city gate in the middle of the morning? However, when the 3 children glanced at their master, they only felt that their master's face had changed a little after they went down the mountain. Moreover, he was by their side, but they easily forgot that he was there. What was even stranger was that they found that after seeing their master's appearance, they would forget his appearance in the blink of an eye. They couldn't remember his appearance no matter how they thought about it. Moreover, it was the same for the three of them. They looked at each other and couldn't remember their own appearance. It was as if there was a layer of gauze covering their faces and they couldn't see clearly. "Master, did you use some kind of technique?" Hao couldn't help but ask. Emperor Qing walked with his hands behind his back and said, "That's right. People with ordinary cultivation won't be able to remember your appearance even if they see it. This way, it's a bit safer for you." He paused and glanced at them, saying, "Sometimes being ordinary is a blessing." Hearing this, the three of them didn't say anything. Knowing that it was their master's doing, they were relieved. "I'll go to the tea house in front for a while. Whatever you want to eat or buy, you can eat or buy by yourself. When you're done, you can go there to find me." He pointed at the tea house not far away. From the beginning, he didn't plan to follow the three children around the city. "All right," the three of them answered. When they were about to leave, they heard their master's voice again. "Wait. Is there anything else, master? Do you want us to buy something for you to eat? You can rest assured, I will buy it back," Yu said with a beaming smile. Hearing this, Emperor Qing smiled. He extended his hand from behind his back and placed a cosmos sack in Hao-er's hand. "Take it. Buy whatever you want. Don't be thrifty." He paused and said to Hao, "Yunchen, you're the elder brother. Watch over them more." "Yes, disciple understands. Many thanks, master." Hao expressed his thanks, and after saluting him, he left with Yu and Mu Chen. Big brother, let's go eat first. I want to eat scallion pancakes, also want to eat meat buns, also want to eat sugar water." Yu muttered while walking, her voice was filled with joy and expectation. "All right, let's go eat first." Hao smiled and led the two of them to a small stall. Chapter 4691. In the grocery store. "I want 100 jin of spirit rice," Yu shouted to the shopkeeper. She touched the spirit rice with her eyes shining. After eating, they began to buy things. There were already a lot of things piled up in the space. After searching several stores with great difficulty, they finally found spirit rice in this store. They asked for 100 jin of spirit rice. When the shopkeeper heard this, he was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed. 100 jin of spirit rice? Whose child are you? Do you know what spirit rice is used for? Do you know how much spirit rice costs for 1 jin? You actually asked for 100 jin? Alright, let's go play somewhere else. This is not a place where you children can come to play. The things in this store are very expensive." The shopkeeper shook his head and didn't bicker with the children. He just let them leave. "How much is 1 jin of spirit rice?" Hao asked. When he opened his mouth, the shopkeeper seemed to have just noticed that there was a half-grown child. He looked at him and said with a smile, "Spirit rice is not calculated by money. It is calculated by crystal stones. 1 jin of spirit rice costs 30 crystal stones. Spirit rice can help one's cultivation, but not everyone can afford it. Generally, one person can only eat a handful. You see, it's like this." The shopkeeper smiled and grabbed a handful of spirit rice. He spread it on his palm and said with a smile, "You can cook a bowl of spirit rice here. You don't need to eat anything else. After eating a bowl of spirit rice, you won't feel hungry for the whole day. Instead, you will be full of energy." The three children naturally knew what he was talking about, because their mother used to give them spirit rice to eat. "Is it cheaper to buy 100 jin?" Hao asked. Hearing this, the shopkeeper was stunned for a moment. He looked at Hao in surprise. "You really want 100 jin?" When he looked carefully, he found that the appearance of the three children was not very clear. It seemed that he could see that what he saw was ordinary facial features. However, he had been a shopkeeper in this city for many years. He also knew that some strong disciples had some techniques to hide their identity. Thinking of this, he looked at the 3 children again and had an idea in his heart. I don't have much spirit rice in this store. There are only 70 to 80 gene left. The next batch of spirit rice will be delivered in a few days. If you want all of it, I can give you a discount. The shopkeeper said. Do you have seeds here? Ewer asked. There are seeds. No matter what kind of seeds there are. The shopkeeper smiled and said, in the entire city, only I have the most complete collection. Whether you want fruit tree seeds, spirit rice seeds, spirit flower seeds, medicinal herbs, or spirit wine, I have it all here. However, I don't buy things with gold coins, but with crystal stones. We have crystal stones, you can rest assured. I want some seeds of spiritual rice, and also some seeds of medicinal herbs. You can look at this list again. If you have, then help us prepare everything. Ewer took out the list she had written long ago, and handed it over to him. When the shopkeeper saw the crooked handwriting, he couldn't help but smile. He looked down and nodded. We have everything, but those pots and such are useless. But those are easy to find. Come with me. I'll show you the goods. If you think they're suitable, I'll get someone to pick them out and settle the bill. All right. The 3 of them replied and followed the shopkeeper inside. Chapter 4692. Little Sister. Hao and Mu Chen were startled and quickly came to her side to help her up. Seeing the wine splashed all over her body, and the blood seeping out of the back of her hand from the broken wine jar, the 2 men's faces immediately darkened. Ewer was knocked down, and the spirit wine spilled all over her body. Not only was the wound on the back of her hand painful, even her elbow was also somewhat bruised. She hissed, wrinkling her little face. She stood up with the support of her 2 elder brothers. Before the 3 of them could speak, the person who knocked her down actually scolded first. Where did this little girl come from? Why don't you have eyes? The one who spoke was a 30-something-year-old man. He was wearing black clothes, and his hands were holding a spirit wine jug of approximately 10 pounds. Because he had turned around with his back facing Ewer, and because Ewer was also small, he didn't see her from behind, and also didn't pay attention to her. However, he didn't apologize, instead he blamed her. Aya, why did you break my spirit wine? This was a top-notch wine. This. When the manager heard the sound, he turned around and saw the spirit wine spilled all over the floor, as well as the broken wine jugs. He couldn't help but look at the 3 children, and then at the green-robed man. This wine was broken by you, so you have to pay for it. The shopkeeper looked at them and said, each person pays half. This is also fair. Hee, shopkeeper, this wine was broken by this little girl. It has nothing to do with me. You want me to pay for it? That won't do. The blue-robed man said with a fake smile, and was about to walk past the 3 children to pay the bill. Who knew that when he walked past the 3 children, Hao glanced at him and suddenly stretched out his leg. The blue-robed man exclaimed. Because he was holding the wine jar in his hand, he tripped and was about to fall to the ground. He hurriedly tried to stabilize his body and turn around. Who knew that he would be knocked to the ground from behind? The wine jar in his hand also smashed with a bang. The spirit wine spilled on the ground and the broken wine jar scattered all over the ground. That person couldn't dodge in time and his whole body fell down, pressing on the wine jar fragments. For a moment, only a blood-curdling scream was heard. Hiss. He was lying on the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. Only the sound of gasping could be heard. Looking at this scene, the shopkeeper's eyelids jumped. He calmly looked at the 3 children and suppressed the shock in his heart. He slightly moved back a step and didn't speak. Hao and Mu Chen glanced at the blue-robed man who fell on the ground and didn't pay attention to him. Instead, they focused their attention on their little sister. Little sister, let me help you dry your clothes. As Hao spoke, he placed his hand on her clothes and operated the spirit power in his palm. Along with the surge of spirit power, The spirit wine on Yu-Er's body was completely evaporated. Merely, although her clothes were dry, there was still a faint spirit wine fragrance on her body. Chapter 46:93. As he stood up, he picked up a shard from the ground and threw it at them. His speed was so fast that ordinary people would not be able to react in time. When the shopkeeper saw the green-clothed man's actions, he couldn't help but be shocked. He couldn't help but take a step forward. Just as he was about to step forward to stop him, he saw the older boy pull his younger brother and sister out of the grocery store, avoiding the attack. "Damn brat! I think you're courting death." The green-robed man chased after them angrily and swung his fist at Hao. "Stand aside." Hao pushed his younger brother and sister to the side and went forward himself. As the spiritual power in his body surged, his peak golden core cultivation strength also burst forth. Hiss! Such a young child is actually a peak golden core cultivator? Looks like this child is a noble family or a disciple of a large sect. That man is wearing the green robes of the Sky Sun Sect's inner sect disciples, right? He looks like a Sky Sun Sect's inner sect disciple. Why is he fighting with a child? This child is also bold. He dares to fight with a Sky Sun Sect's inner sect disciple. He's not simple. In my opinion, this child may be a direct disciple of a large sect. Look, he's already at the peak of the golden core realm at such a young age. Also, he should have a spell on him. I can't see his face clearly. If a Sky Sun Sect's inner sect disciple encounters him, I wonder who will take care of who. An old man standing in the crowd said as he stroked his beard. He watched the fight between the two with great interest. The more he watched, the more he felt that the child's strength was steady despite his young age. Moreover, his movements were strange. He was more and more certain that his origin was not simple. His gaze turned and fell on the two children at the side. The two children were also under a spell. However, with his strength, he could not see through it. That was interesting. The old man withdrew his gaze and looked at the two people fighting. Seeing that the green-robed man could not gain the upper hand empty-handed, he took out a sharp sword. As soon as he took out his sword, a cold light flashed in the little boy's hand and a sharp sword appeared. "Good sword!" the old man exclaimed in a low voice. His eyes lit up as he looked at the sharp sword in the little boy's hand. The sword exuded a cold aura, and the sword energy was sharp and intimidating. It was obvious that it was a rare treasure sword. Especially when the boy held the sword in his hand, the aura around him changed and became extremely sharp. He turned the sword in his hand and a sword flower shot out. His figure also shot out and attacked the green-robed man at a speed that was too fast for the ears to cover. Perhaps he did not expect that a little child's swordsmanship would be above his. Originally, he thought that he, who was also at the peak of Jindan's stage, would be able to suppress this little brat, even if he was suppressed after showing his sword. He couldn't help but take a few steps back while blocking the sharp sword in front of him. When the two swords collided, the biting cold sword chi burst out and went straight for his eyes. Ah! The tip of the sword slashed across his hand, causing his hand to tremble in pain. The sword in his hand also fell to the ground with a clang. His entire body was forced to sit on the ground by the sharp sword that was approaching between his eyebrows. Don't kill me. I'm a disciple of the Sky Sun Sect. If you kill me, you'll become an enemy of the Heavenly Sun Sect. He cried out in alarm, immediately using the name of his sect in an attempt to scare him away. Chapter 46:94. Cold sweat seeped out of the green-robed man's forehead. He didn't even dare to breathe loudly, afraid that the tip of the sword against his neck would hurt his throat. He swallowed his saliva and asked stiffly, "What do you want?" "Compensate the shopkeeper for the broken items and then get out of my sight," Hao said coldly. "Okay." He gritted his teeth, took out his cosmos sack, and threw it to the shopkeeper. "Is this enough?" The shopkeeper hurriedly caught it and opened it. He took out the shattered spirit wine crystals and returned the remaining ones to him. It's enough. There's more. Seeing this, Hauer put away his sword and held it behind his back. He shouted, "Get out!" The young man picked up the sword and held his cut wrist. He glared fiercely at Hauer before gritting his teeth and leaving quickly. Good! Good! Amazing! Are all the children these days so amazing? When the surrounding people saw this, they all cheered out loud. Some of them stared at Hauer with burning eyes and asked loudly, "Young master, which sect do you belong to? Your swordsmanship is so outstanding at such a young age. It seems that your master must be a powerful figure too." "Yes, young master." "Who is your master? Does your master still accept disciples?" Another person asked. They thought that if their children could learn half of this child's skills, they wouldn't have to worry about the future. However, Hauer didn't pay attention to them. Instead, he walked towards his younger brother and sister and brought them to the shopkeeper. "Shopkeeper, prepare everything for us." Okay. The shopkeeper said with a face full of smiles. He looked deeply at Hauer and said with a smile, "Young master, I'll give you a discount. In the future, if you want to buy things, come to me. I'll give you a discount." One look and they could tell that he wasn't a simple person. He would be even more extraordinary when he grew up. If they had a long-term relationship, it would only be beneficial to them. At that moment, he personally led them in and prepared the items on their list. After showing them once, he paid the bill. After sending them out, the shopkeeper lowered his voice and warned them, "Young lord, you'd better hurry back to your master or your clansman. That disciple from the Heavenly Sun sect won't let this matter go. He must have gone to find someone. Since you've bought your things, you should hurry back. Go back quickly so you don't run into trouble again." "Okay, we understand. Thank you." Hauer thanked him and left with Mu Chun and Mu Yu. They didn't go directly to the tea house because they still had some things to buy. Thus, they went to another street to buy them. Not long after they left, the green-robed man from the sect arrived with a few other men. "Where are they?" The leader of the group, a man in a blue robe, asked. He glanced around with a malicious look on his face. "Senior brother, the 3 brats just now are here. Let me go in and ask the shopkeeper." As the man in blue spoke, he quickly walked into the shop. At this time, his injured wrist had been bandaged, but his hand was hanging limply. The injury had damaged the tendons on his wrist. If it weren't for the fact that their sect had a highly skilled doctor, his hand would have been crippled. Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth and hatred surged in his heart. Chapter 46-95. So it's this young master. The shopkeeper smiled and cupped his hands in salute. He glanced at his bandaged wrist and said with a smile, "Those 3 children have already left after buying the things. They are no longer in our shop." "Left? Where did they go?" the man in green asked. "I don't know." He shook his head. "You just took my crystal stones. Take them out and give them back to me." The man in green stepped forward and shouted, grabbing the shopkeeper's collar with one hand. Thinking of the crystal stones taken by the shopkeeper, he felt a burst of pain in his heart. Young master, you must be joking. Those crystal stones are compensation for the broken spirit wine in our store. How can I take them back to you?" The shopkeeper smiled and reached out to take the man's hand off his collar. He patted it gently and smoothed out his wrinkled collar. Seeing the shopkeeper easily take his hand away, the green-robed man was startled for a moment and his mind wandered for a moment. "Well, since it's compensation, don't mention anything about taking it back." The man in blue glanced at the man in green, then looked at the shopkeeper and asked, "Shopkeeper, did you see which direction they went?" "Yes." The shopkeeper nodded and smiled. He walked outside and pointed in the opposite direction. "I saw them go that way." "Thank you," the man in blue said, glancing at the few people and said, "Let's go." The man in green reluctantly followed out. After walking for a while, he asked, "Senior brother, why didn't you take back the crystal stones?" Obviously. Before he finished, he was interrupted. "Take it back? The man in blue sneered and glanced at him. "Which shop in this city doesn't have a backer? The shopkeeper of that grocery store has a restrained aura. At first glance, you can tell that he is a master. Maybe his strength is above us. You want to take back the crystal stones from him? You are really naive. Are we just going to let it go?" The man in green was a little unwilling. "Find those 3 brats. Why can't we take it back?" The man in blue said and snorted. "What's more, a 10-year-old brat can reach the peak of the gold core stage? I also want to meet him and see what his background is." Because the shopkeeper had pointed in the opposite direction of the 3 children, their original intention was to find the 3 children, but unexpectedly, the more they walked, the further they went from the 3 children. At this time, after the 3 children had bought all the things, when they passed by the dessert shop, Eura licked her lips like a little gluttonous cat, and looking at that shop with shining eyes, she said to her 2 brothers beside her, Big brother, let's go in and buy some desserts, okay?" Hao and Mu Chun saw her greedy look, and couldn't help but smile dotingly. "Okay, let's go in and buy some to bring back." Okay, then I will pick some more and keep them to eat slowly." Ewer beamed with smiles, then holding their hands, she happily walked inside. Emperor Qing was drinking tea in the tea-house while waiting for the 3 kids. He was looking at an 8-trigram mirror in his hand, which showed what the 3 kids had encountered outside. When he saw the 3 of them holding hands and entering a dessert shop, the corners of his lips curled up slightly, revealing a faint arc. Chapter 4696. At this moment, the green-robed man was walking beside the blue-robed man and said, "Senior brother, could it be that the shopkeeper didn't tell us the truth? We haven't found any traces of the 3 children on our way here." "Then let's keep looking. It's just a few children. As long as they're still in the city, we'll definitely find them." The blue-robed man's voice deepened as a cold glint flashed across his eyes. "Anyone who dares to touch a member of our Sky Sun sect is going against our sect. How can we allow them to be so presumptuous? Senior brother is right. Those 3 brats are so arrogant. If we find them, they'll definitely—" Before he could finish speaking, he screamed and fell to the ground. "Junior brother!" The man in blue was shocked. He turned around, and when he saw the person who had already stopped breathing on the ground, his face could not help but turn pale. There was even a trace of fear in his eyes. He instinctively raised his head and looked around. The few disciples who were following him quickly surrounded him and pointed their swords at him. They looked around vigilantly, trying to find out who had done it. However, when they looked around, they only saw that the people on the street and even in the shops and restaurants on both sides of the street were looking in their direction. Their faces were filled with shock and astonishment. Obviously, no one had expected that one of them would suddenly be killed while they were walking and chatting. Furthermore, the killer didn't even show his face. "Senior brother, how is he?" one of the disciples asked with a trace of panic in his voice. Dead. The blue-robed man swallowed his saliva and suppressed the shock and fear in his heart. He looked at the tiny wound between the green-robed man's eyebrows. There wasn't even any blood seeping out from the wound, but the person had already stopped breathing. When they heard that the person had died, the disciples were stunned. They turned around and saw a tiny wound between the man's eyebrows. However, they didn't even know what weapon had killed him. "Carry him back, let's go," the blue-robed man said, and asked them to carry the person back to the sect. They had come out to buy things together. Now that one of them had died, it would be difficult for them to explain themselves when they returned. However, his sudden death terrified him. He guessed that it had something to do with the 3 children. Otherwise, why was he the only one who was killed? Could it be that the 3 children had an expert protecting them from behind? They knew that they were going to cause trouble for the 3 children, so they killed their junior brother to intimidate them? They didn't dare to stay any longer. They immediately carried the man and quickly left, wanting to report this matter to the sect as soon as possible. At this moment, the 3 children were still unaware of what had happened. They were walking around the city and putting the things they bought into the space. Perhaps it was because they had bought a lot of things and put them into the space. Along the way, they were being watched by some people. These brats must have a lot of valuable things on them. We've been following them all the way. Other than the 3 of them, no one else has followed them. I think we don't need to wait for Big Brother to come. How about we just lure them to the alley in front of us? A rogue cultivator said as he stared greedily at the 3 children in front of him. Let's wait for Big Brother. Otherwise, it would be hard to explain if something happened. Another itinerant cultivator said. He turned around and grinned. Look, isn't Big Brother here? Chapter 4697. Big Brother. Several people hurriedly surrounded him in a fawning manner. Big Brother, we found a few fat sheep. We were waiting for Big Brother to come so that we can slaughter them. One of the rogue cultivators spoke and pointed to the front. Big Brother, look, the 3 kids in front have bought a lot of things along the way. Their crystal stones seem to be endless. We guessed that they must have more valuable things on them. Moreover, they don't have any adults accompanying them to protect them. If we pick on them, we can definitely make a lot of money. The brocade-robed rogue cultivator had a toothpick in his mouth. He was originally thinking about something when he heard his subordinates say so. When he saw the 3 children, he couldn't help but be shocked. Big Brother, let's lure them into the alley in front. These fat sheep won't be able to escape. The person next to him didn't see the slight change in his expression. He was still staring greedily at the 3 children in front of him. If it weren't for the trouble of selling those 3 brats, I really would have put a sack over them and sold them. Sell your head. The brocade-robed rogue cultivator cursed and reached out to slap the rogue cultivator's head. If you want to die, go by yourself. Don't drag me into it. Big Brother, what's wrong? Can't we kill them? It's just 3 children. The person was slapped on the head, but he didn't dare to fight back. He just lowered his head and took a step back. When I went to eat earlier, I saw the older of the 3 children in front. His strength is at the peak of the gold core stage, and he even beat up an inner disciple of the Sky Sun sect. You dare to fight with him? Aren't you courting death? Also, when I came over just now, I heard someone on the street say that an inner disciple of the Sky Sun sect died on West Street. As he spoke, a wisp of deep thought appeared in the eyes of the independent cultivator, and he gazed at the 3 children that were gradually disappearing into the distance. He said, "Those 3 children are definitely disciples of some great sect or clan. Moreover, there's someone protecting them from the shadows. Isn't that courting death?" Hearing this, the rogue cultivators were so scared that they broke out in a cold sweat. Their palms were cold as they patted their chests. That was close. If Big Brother hadn't come, I'm afraid they would have died here. Hauer in front of them continued to walk with his younger brother and sister. After walking for a while, he glanced back and saw several rogue cultivators standing there looking at them and didn't follow them. Seeing this, he didn't bother and took them to buy things again. When it was close to noon, the 3 of them arrived at the tea house and found their master by the window on the 2nd floor. "Master, we're back." You were happily trotted over, and with smiling eyes, she said, "I also bought something to eat for Master. Master, quickly try it, this mung bean cake is very delicious." She took out a pastry from her space, opened it, and placed it in front of him. The Qing Emperor glanced at the 3 of them and asked, "Have you bought everything?" His eyes seemed to fall on the little girl's bandaged hand. "Yes, we've bought everything," Hao and Mu Chun answered at the same time. "Why does little Qi have the smell of wine? Did something happen?" he asked unhurriedly as he picked up a piece of cake to eat.